when we were preparing to do our interviews and preparing to make sure you arrive today, and I respect you a lot because as of yesterday, we already have two people who said they want to cancel this interview because they don't want, because with the rates of
Yeah.
schools, with the
Yeah.
rates in Painesville, the
Yeah.
Hispanic Latino people,
Yeah.
the European community, most people, they just want to cancel it because they don't want to anger each side. But you showed up. And in fact, we didn't have to beg. And why is that? Were you worried or you're not worried about speaking up, angering some? Actually, I got some threats from my email
Oh
saying that, oh, I
gosh.
couldn't believe it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
what made you not be afraid to speak up? Hey, my name is Margaret Wong, and here with me is Mr. or Dr. Baiju Shah.
Not doctor.
Oh my
Not
God.
doctor. I only looked that part, but I'm not that.
So, but he's awesome. I think it's sort of unfair for our listeners for me to interview him because I've known him since he was a child. I just asked him, how old are your parents now? Because his parents are awesome people. I've supported his father and his mother's medical mission for years and years and years and years. I remember Beiju when he was a child. And so I'm just excited today. We've waited for like 3 weeks for him to come see us. Mr. Now I have to call you Mr. Beju. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You went to Yale, you went to Harvard, but you came home. I mean, that's awesome.
Well, first, thank you, Margaret, for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you, especially on this day of all days. So, Gong Hai Fat Choi.
Go ahead, Patroy.
It's
Thank you.
I I hate talking about myself. So I can tell you that I am a Clevelander through and through. Right, born in St. Luke's Hospital, I grew up in Mayfield with my wonderful parents, as you mentioned. I went to Mayfield High School and always had a desire to be back in Cleveland. I had the fortune, as I was going through my schooling, to meet a wonderful individual by the name of Richard Shatton. I met him because his mother was my third grade teacher. And as I was starting to explore my future after high school and think about things, some of my counselors at the time said, well, you should meet this person, Richard Shatton, because he seems like someone you should get to know. And Richard, planted a few seeds in my brain, wonderful person, incredible legacy in this community. But the seeds he planted back then when I was in high school was, look, if you've got ideas and if you've got energy, come back and try out Cleveland. And those are the seeds that took root in my brain, and my passion that was always here for my community led me to immediately return back to this community, this wonderful place in this region, now 27 years ago. So you make me feel young, but
And
my
his
daughters would tell
children now,
me
that's right.
I'm not young anymore.
But he not only did he went to Yale, he went to Harvard. He's always been a rising star, not only in our Asian communities. It's always, hey Beiju, oh Beiju, how are you? And then he used to run the Cleveland clinics.
Bioenterprise.
Bioenterprise.
Yeah.
I mean, he's into all these amazing, amazing stuff. And now he's of course the chairman and president of the Greater Cleveland Partnership, and they have awesome presence. And can you introduce to me who they are?
Sure. So Greater Cleveland Partnership in every region, and certainly in our community, this is the case. It's the forum at which the CEOs of our community come together. And I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of the organization, but it's really because of the board, because of these wonderful CEOs of Sherwin-Williams and Cleveland Clinic and Key Bank and the Cleveland Guardians and the Browns and the Cavs and Eaton and all these wonderful companies. They come together to help shape a vision for where our region should go from an economic perspective. And the region is the entire region. It's, from Sandusky to Ashtabula, from Cleveland down to Kent. It's the big region, the place that everyone that roots for our sports teams calls Cleveland. That's the region. They help shape a vision for where that region should go economically. And then because of their definition of priorities and who they are, we're able to bring others together to help shape those priorities and execute them.
Awesome. And what made you decide to take this position? Someone like you, your father's an entrepreneur, your
Yeah.
mother's a
Yeah.
doctor, you're a famous
Look,
family in
oh,
Cleveland.
well, you're very kind. For me, it's a privilege to have this role. My story, as you mentioned, is I've done a lot of different things in Cleveland, and you and I together have helped create a wonderful organization called Global Cleveland, whose mission is super important to the success of our region, and who has a wonderful CEO in Joe Simperman. The reason I find myself in this privileged role is I was doing things in the biomedical space, as you mentioned, first bioenterprise, then we started an endeavor called the Harrington Project in a company associated with called Biomotive, and I was the CEO there. And I was still always had a foot in the civic world, whether it was with Global Cleveland or Destination Cleveland or any of these other types of enterprises that I would get involved in as a board member. 2016 happened in our region. And if you remember 2016, it was this incredible year where not only did our Cavaliers win the championship, but we also hosted the Republican National Conference. We had the Guardians, then Indians, in the World Series. And the town really felt like it had finally lifted past some of the challenges, right, that we've had. And I found myself in 2016 being excited for all of the achievements that so many people in this community have been working on, that we're finally getting the spotlight that they deserve, cheering everybody on, saying, this is wonderful, this is wonderful, this is wonderful, but feeling more like a participant, more like a spectator, I should say, than a participant. And that's when I knew in the heart of hearts after 2016 passed that my real passion, while I loved my companies and I loved biomedical innovation and trying to create new medical technologies for the world, my passion for Cleveland was even stronger. And I wanted to jump back into all things full-time, doing whatever I could do to help my region. Right? And so I left my company, worked with my board to help find a successor, and just jumped. And one thing led to the next thing, and I'm lucky to find myself in the role I am today.
The interesting thing is because years and years ago, I used to sit on your board. That was when you were still a child.
Yeah.
But they always managed, and I should have been more involved, but I was busy building a practice.
Of course.
So how did your organization retain and collect people like you who's willing to serve? I know they pay you guys a lot of money, but I don't think at this stage money is as important as your calling.
I think, for the people that choose to be in civic service, wherever that might be, whether it's in organizations like Greater Cleveland Partnership or in the public sector, it's because the mission is important. And that I think the people, I can just maybe speak for myself, what was really important to me is that there was not only an organization that was committed to the mission, but that there was a board and a community that was committed to this mission. So you may know that we call our plan the all-in plan. We have this all-in plan for making this region one of the great regions in the Great Lakes. And we use the word all-in because it also defines the values by which we operate as an organization. We expect the ecosystem to operate as well. We have 7 values. They all start with the letters IN. Right? Starting with inspired and always ending with in unity. We're always doing it for the community. It's not about who leads, who supports, or who gets any credit. All of us work for the community. But I use all in a different way too, because it's also about the mindset and the spirit. And when I was going through the exploration process with the partnership, one of my questions to the board members at that time was, I'm willing to dedicate my next chapter of my career, if you want to call it that, to this mission and to this organization, only if you as business leaders are willing to commit as well. Because we can't do anything alone, whether it's our organization or as individuals, but with all of us together, we can actually start to move major priorities for our community forward. And they have been true to their word. They are extraordinarily committed individuals. They've got incredibly busy day jobs. But when we call on them to assist, to give us guidance, to make a phone call, to connect us to their organizations that might be able to provide specific resources for a priority, they have constantly delivered. And that is what excites people who are excited about mission is that you've got a team, both at the board and within your organization, and now with many system partners that are going to be supportive. That's what it takes, I think, to draw good people into any type of organization.
And one thing I admire about you is that you are willing to step back, because there was a time that your name is everywhere in all the newspapers, on the TV station. You're the go-to person. We need an opinion, we go to Baiju. You know, I mean, he has the credentials, he knows how to speak, he's handsome.
Oh, gosh.
He's Asian. Yes, you are. But I noticed lately you're willing to, at least you're secure, maybe, whatever the word is, you're willing to you know that you're leading a group of, really huge ego. These are CEOs and important people nationally. And you're willing to step back and let them do the speaking. But we all know who's behind all these people,
Well,
And how do you come to that sense of maybe humility, humbleness, and just say, let them talk, I'll back them up.
Well, I think it's important, you get to, it's a style of leadership that I think is very important, no matter what type of organization you're in, to understand the importance of letting many people shine, right? We always talk about a star can shine bright, but a constellation will always be brighter. You want to be surrounded by stars, and you want to be surrounded by people that are able to represent the mission, to able to take leadership and to get credit for their engagement in various priorities that are for our community. It's, for me personally, and what we think for our organization, it goes back to, it's about in unity. It's not about who leads, supports, and most importantly, it's not about who gets any credit. All of us are working on behalf of the community. We're all trying to move Greater Cleveland forward. We need to just stay focused on what we can do, and when we need to enable others to succeed, then we will enable them to succeed, and we will also let them get the recognition they should deserve for having taken, that chance and that commitment of resource that they put forward.
When we were preparing to do our interviews and preparing to make sure you arrive today, and I respect you a lot, because as of yesterday, we already have 2 people who said they want to cancel this interview because they don't want, because with the rates of schools, with the rates in Painesville, the Hispanic, Latino people, the European community, most people, they just want to cancel it because they don't want to anger each side. But you showed up, and in fact, we didn't have to beg. And why is that? Were you worried, or you're not worried about speaking up, angering some? Actually, I got some threats from my emails saying,
gosh.
I couldn't believe that. It is what it is. So what made you not be afraid to speak up?
Well, it's sad, first of all, that people are not willing to come and have conversations, right? I have enormous respect for everything that you have done, from both building this incredible law firm on a national scale, but also what you've done for our community. So if you ask, I'm always going to say yes, Margaret. That's where it starts, right? We are in front of, whether it's business leaders or political leaders, media every day. Yesterday, I spent the entire day in Columbus. And I spent the day in Columbus basically because we are rolling out, which will be public in a few days, our priorities on behalf of all of the Ohio Metro Chambers. I have the privilege right now of chairing the group of the 8 Ohio Metro Chambers, and so we were putting forward our policy priorities to legislative leaders and administration leaders yesterday. And not a day goes by that that's not a part of our responsibility, our role, to constantly be pushing our mission, our priorities, our plans, and adapting them to changing circumstances. Now, there are, we live right now in an incredibly turbulent period, and that presents unique challenges. One, we always are working with our businesses and our community partners to give them our insights on what's happening. What do you need to pay attention to? What do you need to wait for? You can't react to everything. You have to, just like you do in business, you have to monitor the conditions, and you have to assess, when is it important to act, when is it important to react, and when do you just need to wait because the dust will clear. There was an example just over the last 36 hours. At the beginning of yesterday morning, the White House had issued an executive order that signaled a pause in all sorts of federal funding. You're probably very familiar with this order that came out and caused all sorts of consternation from small organizations and companies in our region that have federal contracts to our largest health institutions and research universities that also have federal contracts, right? And everyone in between. And we just said, let's wait. We're going to wait and see how this plays out. Of course, there's action that provokes a reaction from federal courts. It provokes a reaction from legislators, many different types of stakeholders across localities, states, the private sector, and we waited. 36 hours later, the White House has rescinded that order, right? And that's a good thing because that would have caused incredible chaos for lots of organizations, no matter what you care about politically and no matter what cause you care about. It has enormous disruption, right, to this. What we talk about is businesses, this a truism. Whether you're a business or an organization or an individual, when you have certainty, you are more likely to have confidence in your plans that lead to investment, that lead to hiring. Businesses favor certainty. Right? Whatever that certainty is, once you know it's certain, when you create uncertainty, right? When you create situations where you have actions and reactions, that's destabilizing. And everybody pauses. And that's what we're most concerned about, is what's going to happen and the pause that then has ramifications that slow down investments, slow down projects, slow down hiring, ultimately impact individuals.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And let me talk about, and what's your take on Ohio H-1Bs, EB-5? Because right now I think the conversation on all these raids
we are, we as an organization, not just me as an organization, are very pro legal immigration. We have been a strong proponent, even preceding my participation at the Greater Cleveland Partnership, of expanding, skilled worker visas. We know that you and I know this from your history in particular, and my involvement more from Global Cleveland, how those quotas get immediately absorbed by the demand that's out there. So anything we can do as a country to let in more skilled individuals, motivated individuals through legal means is going to help our economy. Without question, the economic strategy that this country has had from its inception is bring the most motivated and talented individuals to this country, give them the freedom to be entrepreneurs, to explore, to pursue opportunities. And lo and behold, wonderful things happen not only for our country, but for the entire world, right? And that is an incredible economic strategy that no country in the world has been able to replicate, right? It's what gives us the economic platform that we have as a country, the power that we have as a country. It creates the conditions that hopefully improve the situation for many other places in the world. We must continue that, right? That is what we absolutely need to continue, especially in the face of the challenging demographic forecast that we now have. As people have fewer and fewer children, our only solution to continuing growth of our companies and our communities is we need more immigrants.
Absolutely. And one of our last questions, and a lot of my friends ask me to
Sure.
ask you, how are your parents doing? And also your father's medical mission. Can you
Sure.
explain how many years?
Sure.
How
No.
are they
So
doing
it's
now?
well. Thank you for asking. So my parents are fortunately doing extraordinarily well for their age. They are 87 and 86, about to be 88 and 87 years old, which is pretty stunning, and still living independently and quite healthy for their age. My father and my mother started doing medical missions now almost 30 years ago, and they started doing an annual trip to India now just over 25 years ago. And each year they help organize trips where many medical professionals and some non-medical professionals, my father is not a medical professional, he's just an organizer, will go over and provide free medical care and assistance in very poor areas, always once a year in India and usually once a year somewhere else in the world. And so when the tsunami hit, they were, on a plane and they were providing medical aid. And when there were issues in Haiti, I think it was an earthquake in Haiti that hit Haiti, they went to Haiti and they do amazing things, right, in this. And so they are continuing to do well. My father just returned from India last week for yet another medical mission that they just completed. My mother no longer is able to travel on these missions, but my father, it's his passion. It's what he continues to organize each year, keeps him going to stay connected to this world of individuals that want to give back around the world. And we're excited that he's able to do it still.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the last question.
Sure.
As a child of successful parents,
Yep.
as a child of successful immigrants, and you're born
Yeah.
here, what do you think of old people like us, like your parents? I know sometimes my children say, "Oh, Mom," I'm like, "Huh?" So
No,
one of those kids was just awesome.
Well, look, I think as we all age, right, we get newfound respect for what our parents and other people that are older than us have gone through because we now experience it, right?
Well, you were naughty when you were young.
That's
I heard
right.
those stories. I heard
So
those stories.
you become a parent, you have much more respect for everything your parents have been able to do for you because you realize it's a challenge, right? Kids are not easy. And our daughters are wonderful, but it takes a lot of energy and, a lot of complexity at times to deal with situations. And so you get much more respect for, I think, your parents. I think the same is true in your work, right? As you take different roles, things look different once you're inside than when you're looking from the outside, right? We talk about Monday morning quarterbacks in the concept of sports. Well, it's a lot harder to be on the field. And I think the same is true in roles. And so you get much more respect. And I have enormous respect and gratitude for my predecessors professionally. And I look to them as mentors. And I think it's really important, no matter what stage you are in life, whether it's professionally or at a personal level, to look for mentors, to look for the wisdom of those that have been in similar situations and to learn from that wisdom and use it so that you're not making perhaps the same mistakes. Maybe you're making different mistakes, and then to pay it forward by mentoring others. I think that's absolutely essential.
And thank you. Again, my name is Margaret Wong, and together with me is Mr. Baiju Shah, or I call him Dr. Baiju Shah. And thank you so much.
I appreciate that recognition, but I'm not a doctor, and my mother reminds me often that I'm not a doctor. So, thank you.
Yeah.